Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, the 5th day of November 2014. This is show number 1031. I'm your host, Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining us, whether you listen to us live or via the archive. On tonight's show, we're going to have our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com talking to us about a whole bunch of things, as per usual. We're going to talk about Tim Cook's coming out party on Business Week earlier this week, last week. Very interesting story, big story, important story. Or is it? What do you guys think? Do you think this was of importance, either personally or professionally, for Mr. Cook, for Apple, for the gay and lesbian community, for tech, for America? Talk to me about that. Send me an email to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. We're also going to talk about the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus after 30 days. David Frommer wrote over at Quartz his experiences with the iPhone 6 after 30 days. And so we'll talk to Jim about his experiences of the same. We're also going to talk about a bunch of other stuff coming up. What was I going to say? Oh, I was saying that during the show, it's going to happen. Because I don't have garage space, my poor brand new motorcycle is outside as we speak in the rain, and it's Vancouver, so it's going to rain from now till April, and I feel so guilty about leaving the bike out in the rain. It's also just not good for the bike. I broke open the piggy bank and I bought a cover, and it wasn't supposed to get delivered till tomorrow, but I checked on Amazon and it's out for delivery today. But it's not delivered yet. So I know during the show, the delivery guy's going to show up. I just know he is. So if you suddenly see me, if you hear a knock at the door and you see me leave the show, that's why. Just talk amongst yourselves, because that's what's going to happen. I know I'm going to hear a knock on the door and the guy's going to be there. So I just want to let you know ahead of time. Got a chance to go out for a bit of a ride yesterday. I was on a bike for 6 hours. Never left the city, though. Traveled about 180 kilometers, about 111 miles around Vancouver. Ended up going all the way out from, if you're familiar with the area, I live in the east side in a town, a suburb of Vancouver called Surrey, North Surrey to be exact. I ended up going from Surrey to the University of British Columbia grounds, which is on the complete other side of the city. It's really beautiful out there. The university sits on what's called the University Endowment Lands. It's a huge area of the city, the west side of Vancouver, that's given over to the university. Just massive amount of open space. A lot of greenery there. Just beautiful area. So I wandered around there for a little while, and then I ended up going to a place literally on the exact opposite side of the city called Deep Cove, a beautiful area, a little tiny village on the farthest eastern reaches of the North Shore. Really, really pretty up there too. I didn't get a chance. Iker CA. I didn't get his notice about Honey Donuts until it was too late. Next time I go, I'll have to go and check out the Honey Donuts. And then from there, I ended up at Vancouver's other major university, the Simon Fraser University, or SFU as the case may be, up on Burnaby Mountain, and took some pictures up there too. So I was all over hither and there on the bike yesterday and just had a wonderful time. The bike needs a break-in period of 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles. So I still need to put on some more miles on it before I can really wind it out and really see what it can do. But believe me, even in its break-in period, it's a damn fine bike. I'm enjoying it. So yeah, I had to go. I had to buy a cover. I don't have any I don't have any indoor space. I don't have any covered space to put the bike, and I just don't want to leave it out for literally months on end here in Vancouver as it rains and rains and rains and rains. It's supposed to be sunny on Friday, so I should be able to get out, but pretty much in Vancouver, this time of year, our rainy season, our monsoon, we don't get, for those folks who aren't familiar with Vancouver, we get the same kind of weather as Seattle. It doesn't snow very much here at ground level in Vancouver, but it rains a lot. We'll get 6, 7, 8 days in a row of rain, constant, straight through. And that can get kind of draining on you. And like I said, it can't be good for the bike. So I busted open the piggy bank and did that. So Brian Monroe in our IRC chat room says, Shawn, I'm glad you're getting out on your bike. Thank you, Brian. It's important to me that I can do that. It's mentally, I can't begin to describe it I'm trying to. I keep wanting to write a blog post about why I feel the way I do about riding and why it gets me out of my own head. And maybe I'll get that sometime soon. But it's very, very important to me psychologically and mentally and in all those kinds of ways that I be able to get out and go riding. Marcus says, did you guys read Kara Swisher's post about coming out, about Cook coming out? She wrote that she considered outing him during an All Things D conference. She didn't say she was going to out him. She was going to ask him the question. She was going to put him on the spot and ask him the question. And this has been an open secret in the tech community for at least the last 5 years, if not more. The question is, does it matter? I would have been interested to see how Tim Cook responded, but from Kara's point of view, I'm surprised she even considered it, because for those who don't know, Kara is also gay. Kara is a lesbian, and that doesn't. She's very not defensive, but she defends that position vehemently, and as well she should. But at least in my point of view, and I don't know, I'm not part of the community, so I don't know if I'm right on this, but your private life is your private life. You decide how you want to describe and talk about your private life in a public forum. That's up to Tim Cook to decide, not Kara Swisher. Kara can out Tim Cook because she's out herself. So that's fine for her. There's no ramifications for her. But it's not fair for her to make that choice on behalf of somebody else. It's none of her business. Does it affect his running of Apple? A little bit, yeah. But from a shareholder point of view, no, not at all. It's not her right to do that. It's his right to do it in the way that he wants to. If Tim Cook had wanted to be out when he was 17, he would have made that announcement then. At 25, he would have done it then. At 35, at 45. He waited till now for whatever reasons he wanted to. And we don't need to know those reasons. We're not entitled to those reasons. It doesn't matter what his reasons were. He did. And you either accept it or you don't. And that's your choice to make. And we'll talk to Jim Dalrymple about that a little later on the show to talk about his thoughts and opinions about that. I'd love to hear yours. Email me to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. For those of you folks who have a iPhone 6 or iPhone 6 Plus, how is it? Are you enjoying it? Are you still using it as much as you were before? There's an article I posted up on loopinsight.com about exactly this. Dan Fromer wrote, a month in, the iPhone 6 was the right choice. It's an interesting article. I think it's a well-written article, and pretty much confirms the kind of things that I thought about the iPhone 6. That you get used to the size, that you get comfortable with the different way you have to use it, that it's, because of its size, there's certain choices you have to make that are different. Obviously, you can't put it in the same pockets for a lot of folks. The idea that he says in the article, it's still too big in the best way. It's an amazing tool for travel. The battery life has been the best surprise. But the thing that he said that surprised me most was he said it hasn't replaced his iPad. Now that is interesting to me, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted, I don't know if I'm still going to, get an iPhone 6 Plus, was to see if it could replace my iPad, especially for photo editing and for reading. He's saying no, it hasn't yet. So I think it's very interesting. What about you guys? Have you noticed a change in the way you are using your iPhone? Are you using it more? We're seeing reports come out from Verizon that the usage of the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus is a lot more than the previous versions of the iPhone at the same period of time of its adoption. I think it's very interesting. I wonder why people are using the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus so much more than they use their 5 or their 5S or their 4, things like that. Is it because of the larger screen size? Is it because you can see more of the web and therefore you're more likely to use your iPhone 6 and 6 Plus for longer periods of time to surf the web? I don't know. Be very curious to hear from folks about that. I see folks are commenting on it in the IRC chat room, please do so. If you'd like to join us in the IRC chat room, our good friend Monty has set up a very, very easy way for you guys to hook up to IRC chat right from the front page of the YourMacLifeShow.com website. You go to the page, you see right there in the front page, you see the video, but below the video it says connect to Your Mac Life IRC. And all you got to do is put in a nickname and click connect, and you get dropped into our IRC channel. Just as easy as that. You don't going to know anything about IRC, but it's the best place to talk to me and to the audience about what's going on here for the next hour and a half on Your Mac Life. Email, again, as always, on air at yourmaclife.com. And I always want to send out this reminder to folks, if you're watching us via the Google Hangout, great, fantastic, thanks very much. If you're watching via YouTube, you're going to get a bit of a delay. I think it's about 45 seconds, 30 seconds to 45 seconds on delay. So if you're in the IRC chat room and you see folks commenting on something before you see it or hear it on the YouTube channel, that's the reason why. There's just, for whatever reason, a buffer or delay on YouTube as opposed to Google Hangouts. If you want it to be instantaneous, head on over to the Google Hangout. You can find out where that Google Hangout is by going to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com. Right below the video, you'll see the text where it says you can join us in our Google Hangout here, and set that up and use Google Hangout if you'd like to do that. Sly says she's still getting used to the 6 Plus size-wise. Still don't have a comfortable grip on it at times. Yeah, I agree with you on that, Sly. That's the one thing I've noticed when I've gone to the store and played around with the iPhone 6 Plus, which is the one I would get, is it feels more slippy. I don't know if it's the surface texture of it, or if it's the rounded corners, or if it's the size. It's the first iPhone that I would definitely get a case for. When I get an iPhone 6 Plus, I'm definitely getting a case for it. Because every time I picked one up, it felt like I just don't want to drop this thing. It feels kind of slippy. Never had that problem with any other iPhone I've ever used. So we'll talk about that and much more coming up later in the show. Up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King, joined on our phone by a good friend, Jim Dalrymple from The Loop at loopinsight.com. Jim, how you doing?
Doing good, Shawn. How are you?
I am good. Thanks very much for joining us. By the way, folks, if you missed it, Jim and I did Amplified earlier this morning. You can go to 5by5.tv/amplified for that, or subscribe to it on the iTunes store. Now, Jim, you and I talked about this on Amplified this morning. I want to talk a little bit more about it tonight, about Tim Cook's coming out. And Marcus made an interesting comment in the IRC chat room. I don't know if you saw this, Jim, but Kara Swisher entertained the idea of outing Tim Cook on not all things D, but on their Recode conference session. Actually, no, she said all things D back a few months ago. What do you think of that? How would you think people would have reacted for someone like Kara Swisher to out Tim Cook?
I don't think it's anybody's business to talk about somebody's life choices, sexuality. I would be kind of pissed off, to tell you the truth, because it's none of her business. It's none of anybody's business. So to take that choice away from somebody is wrong.
Even though Kara herself is gay and that she believes
that her beliefs are irrelevant to somebody else's personal choice.
Yeah.
And, if Tim wants to do it, good for Tim. If Tim doesn't want to do it, good for Tim. It shouldn't matter one way or another. But for somebody else to make that choice for you, wrong. There's just nothing else to be said. It's just wrong.
I think in that instance, Kara was thinking more along the lines of being a pure journalist and trying to get news and trying to maybe juice interest in the conference. I don't think she was thinking from a gay and lesbian rights point of view. I think she was just thinking about news.
I don't care how she was thinking about it. Yeah. It's wrong.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no difference in the world. If she was thinking about the conference, she was thinking about herself, she was thinking about boosting, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with business. It has nothing to do with anything but Tim's personal decisions, and those are his to make.
I think there would have been a huge personal backlash on Kara if she had done that. I think she would.
So do I.
Quite possibly might. I don't think she would have lost her job, but she certainly would have lost a lot of respect in the tech community. She does have a lot of respect. She's definitely a good reporter. She's definitely someone who knows her stuff. And I'm surprised that it even came up. I'm surprised that she even thought this thought in her head. This was something that she might do, that she might have outed Tim Cook on that stage. I'm really surprised that she thought that in any way, shape, or form, this was an acceptable thing to even entertain, let alone maybe even ask.
Well, I am one of those people that have a lot of respect for Kara. She is a great reporter, and I don't know if you've ever heard her speak on a panel or anything, but she's very, very funny. And I do have a lot of respect for the woman. I would have lost a ton if she had done something like that. And that's just my own personal view on what happened. So
the rest of there hasn't been a whole lot of other backlash, which I'm very, very happy to see. Yes, there's the usual asshats and comments all around the web, but you ignore those. But we haven't heard from anybody else that this was a good thing. Now, that being said, there hasn't been a whole lot of other positive reinforcement. Yes, we saw that Bill Gates tweeted something, that President Bill Clinton tweeted something, all very positive. Does that mean that the time of this kind of announcement being a big deal has gone, or are these folks a little gun shy about supporting gay rights?
That's a damn good question. I don't know. I don't see it as being something that's a big deal. I have friends that are gay. I have people that I work with. Not at the Loop. I'm not saying you're gay, but people that I work with.
I was going to say, wait a second. There's only 3 of us, and I know I'm not.
There are I think there are things that people can look at in their lives and say, this matters to me. If that's one of the things, if somebody in a company somewhere that you buy products from is gay and it bothers you, then man, I don't know how you're going to live, because I would dare say there's somebody in almost every company out there with products that you make that is gay. So, it doesn't matter to me. So I don't see it as a big deal when, the day that Tim announced it. Much respect for Tim, but that's about it.
Yeah, it was a well written thing. I mean, nothing you wouldn't have expected coming from Apple. It was vetted by any number of people. The Business Week editor said that it was almost perfect copy coming right from Tim Cook. So it was well written, well thought out, and obviously something he's been thinking about for a long period of time. This is not something you just wake up one morning and bang out an email to Business Week and say, "Here, post this." This was definitely well thought out and well considered. And they thought about this from every angle possible, because that's what Apple does. They weighed the pros and the cons of this, and they believe that the pros, I'm sure, vastly outweighed the cons. Now, as we said this morning on Amplified, let's have some more people follow, again, Apple's lead on this. Let's have some more people at Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 1000 companies also stand up and say things like this.
I would support that, but I don't think that people need to stand up and say anything if they don't want to.
Agreed.
I mean, I also don't expect people to stand up and say, "Oh, you know what? I like S&M." I could care less. I don't care. Tim does a great job doing what he's doing. His personal life has nothing to do with it. So, if an executive comes out and says, "Oh, I like to murder people on the weekends," okay, well, that's a bit different. I drive around in a Batmobile and I shoot people. That's a different story. Now you're talking about something that's illegal and is hurting other people. Well, but this Tim should be allowed to do what he wants on his own time.
I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but Susan Gear in our RC chat room pointed to a Facebook page for PFLAG. I think it's People for Parents, Families, Friends, and Allies United with LGBT PFLAG. Anyway, they said that every time someone tells their story, it changes hearts and minds. However, too many Americans fail to realize that in places like Tim Cook's home state of Alabama, people can be fired or discriminated against because of who they are or whom they love. Something else we talked about on Amplified. That's got to also be wrong, too. The fact that you can get fired simply for your personal life.
Right. I mean, that is wrong. And I think I look at Tim Cook and the job that he does. Now, if Tim comes out with a product, the next product, or whatever it is that Apple comes out with, and it sucks, I'm not going to say, "Oh, well, that's because Tim's gay."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
No, clearly, that's why this product failed. I mean, you can't say stuff like that because it's not true. And you got to look then and say, okay, somebody at Apple screwed up because this product is terrible. It's got nothing to do with Tim and his lifestyle.
Monty says in the IRC chat room, did anyone stop listening to Jim's podcast when he announced he drinks Heineken? And I said, I did.
Yeah, actually, I think there were a few.
I don't think that's a fair question, Monty. Because I'm sure a lot of people went, "What is he nuts? I'm out of here."
But you know what? I don't care.
Exactly. That's the other thing too. That's the other thing that I think is really important about a lot of these kinds of things is Tim Cook doesn't care whether you buy or don't buy Apple products because of his lifestyle. I've never talked about this, but it's obvious that this is his choice, his lifestyle. He doesn't care. And that's the way it should be. I don't care who you sleep with. You shouldn't care who I sleep with. Like I've always said, the only time I care about who someone sleeps with is when I want to sleep with them. Then it becomes crucially important. Otherwise, it makes no difference at all.
Yep. Agreed.
Let's move on to, I'm so glad, and correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen this story posted on The Loop, even though it's been posted every frickin' other place on the Macintosh web. We see this story now. Christian Bale is out. Should we be worried about the Steve Jobs movie? Michael Fassbinder is now in line for the Steve Jobs. Stop it. Mac Media, stop it. This is not a story. This is the way Hollywood works. All these rumors.
I don't care.
If you think the Mac,
I don't care about that either.
Exactly. If you think that the Macintosh community is full of rumors, you ain't seen nothing yet when it comes to Hollywood. Hollywood is rife full of these, and the rumors are quite often posted by agents of the actor to promote himself to get a higher salary, to throw up flags to the director. Hey, this guy's interested in this stuff. It's certainly a possibility that Christian Bale didn't even know he was up for the Steve Jobs movie.
Yeah.
Until the movie starts actually filming, we don't know who's going to be in it. What ticks me off, and I want to get your comment on this, Jim, is this a story for the Mac media? Is this a story for the tech media? Or should we be completely ignoring this?
Well, I mean, there's no story that mentions Steve Jobs that the Mac media or the tech media is not going to grab hold of.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't. There's not. It's just the way it is.
But it's just such a colossal waste of time and energy and electrons to talk about things that just aren't factual yet. This is all rumor and innuendo.
I mean, again, it goes back, I think, to it's editor's choice.
Yeah.
Does the editor of a certain publication think that they'll get a lot of page views if they post that? Sure. Yeah. So go ahead, find somebody to write it up. Now, if Dave decides to post that on the Loop tomorrow, then that's fine. Yeah. He can do that if he wants. If you decide to post it, that's fine. Is it of interest to me? Not really. But we have different interests. There are things that you don't post, or even that you send me and say it's all yours. That I just stuff that you post, I may not have found to post. Yeah. I may find it interesting. I may not. It's probably like the story that I just posted about AC/DC's drummer getting arrested for procuring murder. For me and a lot of the people that follow me, they would find that interesting. Maybe you don't care. Maybe Dave doesn't care. But there are a lot of people that do. I guess procuring murder in New Zealand is like hiring a hitman in the U.S.
You got to read that story.
That's what I'm thinking that it must mean, procuring murder.
Now, here's something I didn't know. The story says Rudd is the only Australian-born member of the band. I thought AC/DC was an Australian band.
They are an Australian band. The others moved in.
Huh.
That's
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Who's he attempting to kill?
They didn't say.
He's also charged with possession of methamphetamine, possession of cannabis, and threatening to kill somebody. Wow.
Yeah.
That's not. You're not having a good day, somebody.
Yeah.
Is he the drummer now? Yes.
Yeah.
He was kicked out of the band and then he rejoined in '84. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
That's just procuring murder. That's kind of a British way of saying things, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a friendly British way of saying that. He wanted somebody dead
in the worst way. He couldn't do it himself. He's going to pay someone to do it in the right way. Good for him. Dan Frommer has posted up on Quartz. A month in, the iPhone 6 Plus was the right choice. You've had your iPhone 6 and 6 Plus for a month. Are you using either or both of them still to this day, Jim?
I'm using the 6 Plus.
Now, I know you have review units from Apple. Is that still the review unit from Apple, or did you go out and buy your own?
This is still the unit.
So you're not using the iPhone 6, just the Plus?
Just the Plus.
Interesting. Now, let's talk about that. Why did you make that choice over the 6 Plus over the 6?
A few reasons. First, it's after using it for a while, it's not as big as what I thought it would be. Like unruly type big. Not that big. Fits in my pocket, which is great. It's got a big screen, so my poor eyes can see the text.
Mm-hmm.
And it's big when I sit down and I need to type something out. I can very easily because the screen is big. So it has a lot of advantages, very few disadvantages. I don't see really any disadvantages. Um, I guess the disadvantages that people would see are the same as the advantages.
Mm-hmm.
It's big, but I no longer see that as a problem. I was shocked with it at first, but I'm good.
Dan has an interesting comment. He said, it's an amazing tool for travel. I spent 2 weeks on the road last month and will be in Japan next week for work. Even with a laptop nearby, the iPhone 6 Plus has become my primary road computer for many tasks.
Yeah.
How is it working into your workflow environment?
I do more things on the iPhone now than what I did before.
Wow.
And that's only because the screen is so big, I can do that. Before it was kind of a pain. I would pull out the iPad or pull out the computer, but now, it's big enough where I'm not talking about, writing full stories
Sure.
or anything, but if I need to make a correction or I need to do something like that, I can easily do it.
Mm-hmm. The thing that most interested me, the thing that second most interested me, was the fact that he says the battery life has been the best surprise since getting the iPhone 6 Plus. I haven't once run it down completely yet. Some days, especially on the road, that includes a midday recharge. How's battery life for you?
It's about the same.
Really?
I don't. Yeah, I don't run it down throughout a day. It just lasts. Now, keep in mind that when I'm driving, I also in streaming music to the car or podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going a lot, and I don't run it down.
So just using it the same way you used your previous iPhones, like most of us do. If you're in a car, you'll plug it in. If I'm on the motorcycle, I've got a cigarette lighter port. I can plug it in there. I'm not intentionally.
Most times I don't plug it in though. That's what I'm saying. Like I just use it, and in fact I use it more than what I would have used other phones because now I do more things on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I can see it better. So, yeah, the battery life is amazing.
He says something interesting. He says, I'm hooked on Apple Pay, which I think is just hilarious. Am I unusual in the idea that I buy things without thinking about how I'm going to pay them from the point of view of, which card I'm going to use, or maybe because I haven't used Apple Pay. Have you now that you're back in California, have you had a chance to use Apple Pay yet, Jim?
I have not.
You got to try it, dude. You got to let us know because I'm curious to know what you think about it. But I've seen this from a lot of people. It's very interesting that they'll go out of their way so they can use Apple Pay. Now I want to know if this is just a tech nerd geek kind of thing where they're using the latest, coolest, neatest technology, or whether, I don't know, it somehow gives them a thrill. I don't get it.
Well, I think it kind of does. I mean, it's a very cool, but like we talked about this morning, I'm not going to leave the store because they don't have Apple Pay if they have the product that I want. Now, the difference here is that if a comparable store has the same product at the same price and they do have Apple Pay, then I'll shop there because it's better, it's more convenient, and I want to use Apple Pay. Mm-hmm. So that's the difference. If nobody has it, like if I go to Best Buy or Fry's, Best Buy doesn't have Apple Pay and Fry's does, I'm going to Fry's.
And like you said this morning, we were talking about this on Amplified, you'll go to Best Buy and they won't have it. So let's say you didn't know that Best Buy didn't have it and you go to buy that thing. The next time you'll go, well, I'm not going to go to Best Buy. I'll go to Fry's this time.
Yeah.
And buy it there, assuming the same price, assuming, all things being equal.
Right.
You're not going to drive 100 miles out of your way just to use Apple Pay. But all things being equal, a lot of folks are probably going to be more likely to choose that store that has Apple Pay, which I think is really interesting.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going to walk out, if I'm in the middle of a purchase and, I'm not going to say, oh, well, you don't have Apple Pay, then I'm leaving, but if they try and get me to use currency, then I will leave.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no way. I will say categorically the vast majority of customers will not choose to use currency.
No.
They won't opt for it. They may be forced into it because they'll get a 10% discount, or it's tied to a loyalty card or air miles or whatever it might be. But
Yeah,
the
true.
way currency is set up right now, I can't see anyone signing up for it without significant incentives. You're going to have to do some serious work to get me to give up my checking account information, my social security number, my driver's license. You're
Yeah,
going to
if
have to
you
do
want,
some serious work to get me to give you that information.
if you want me to do that, then I want I want a retirement plan
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't like giving that
and
information to the
and a
government.
car.
They already got it.
Yeah, yeah, I want a retirement plan and a car.
I went into the motorcycle dealership this past week, or a weekend and a half ago, and every time they asked me for that information, I kept asking them, why do you need this information? Why do you, as the bike guys, need to know my driver's license number? Why do you guys need to know my social insurance number? In Canada, we call it social insurance number. Why do you guys need this information? I'm very reticent to give out any information to people who I don't think need that information. And they always had a good reason for it, and they explained it to me, and I was okay with it. But
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that just give out that information willy-nilly. You see it a lot
Well,
down in the States where a lot of places ask for your social security number as a means of identification. In some
yeah,
states, your social security number is on your driver's license. That's the number the DMV uses to identify you. And that's
yeah,
stupid.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of crazy.
We got to be more careful about the kind of information we give out. And that being said, that's why I think currency is going to be a failure, even if there was no such thing as Apple Pay. It was still going to fail. It is still going to fail, regardless of.
Well, it depends, because a lot of, if it is on your driver's license and you're used to getting it out, then you may not care.
Yeah, true.
I wouldn't, but I wouldn't give it out. But, others might.
The other thing in the Dan Fromm article that really surprised me is he says it hasn't replaced my iPad, his iPad mini. He says he still finds himself reaching for the iPad when it's time to read something for more than a few minutes, for watching videos, recipes in the kitchen, reading in bed. Do you find the same thing, or are you still using your iPads?
I'm still using my iPads, but I use my iPhone as my I'm out, traveling type device.
Yeah.
It's for phone calls, it's for quick text messages, it's for things like that. Now I will do a bit more on it because I can see it better. The screen is a bit bigger. I will edit some stories, or I'll do some things that I wouldn't have done on the iPhone before, unless I was in, dire straits and I had to log in on it. But now I can do a bit more of those things. So, but I still use my iPads. I still use my computer.
To me, it's going to be interesting to see how I use the iPhone 6 when I want to edit photos, when I want to start messing around with whether it be something like Snapseed on the iPad or on the iPhone. Can I do that better than I can on a full-size iPad? That will be the kicker for me.
Well, I would have to say probably not.
Yeah.
But, like a lot of things, if you're standing at the airport gate and all of a sudden this needs to be done, then you can pull out the iPhone 6 and do it.
Yeah.
It's like me. If I'm standing at the airport gate and I have to go through my bag to get the iPod, or just pull out the iPhone 6 Plus, nice big screen, put my glasses on, and edit a quick story, I'll just do it on the iPhone now.
Interesting.
I won't bother reaching for the iPad or the Mac to do it, because I can do it very quickly, very easily. Given a choice, I would probably sit down with my Mac and do it. But the fact is, I don't really need to anymore.
It's an interesting article, folks. Go to loopinsight.com. It's linked over there at loopinsight.com. The article is called "A Month In, the iPhone 6 Plus Was the Right Choice." The asshats over at BGR, the poorly named Boy Genius Report, say the gold Apple Watch might be your most expensive Apple purchase ever. What's wrong with that headline, Jim?
Yeah. Well, it will be.
I disagree.
You don't think?
If you bought an Apple II FX, that's more than what the rumored gold watch Apple Watch will be, even if it's $10,000, because the 2FX was $11,000.
Well,
There have been a lot where,
know.
if we assume the gold Apple Watch is going to cost between, let's say, $5,000 and $7,000, somewhere in the neighborhood, which is not out of the realm of possibility. There are lots of Apple people forget. That's one of the problems with the Apple web, is that just anybody can write, and you can be 12 years old and write this stupid article without being able to use it.
I think it could be a lot more than that.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. But these guys are basing their story on the rumor of the $5,000 gold watch. And there have been dozens of Apple products that cost more than $5,000. Hell, a fully loaded Mac Pro will set you back almost $15,000.
Yeah, you can spend a lot of money on products. You're right. But I think that, for a singular Apple product, especially these days, to go to an Apple store, yeah, you'll be laying down a lot of cash for that gold watch.
The best part about all of this is the sound when Apple makes the announcement of how much the Apple Gold watch will cost, will be the sound of tech heads exploding all over the internet. You know that guys at CNET and Business Insider and all those other idiot tech websites have already written their articles about how this is obscene, blah, 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 blah. Whereas the watch websites are going to go, yeah, that's about right. Because that is about right.
Exactly. Yep. You're absolutely right. I mean, if you want to get a head start on how much watches cost, go to any of the high-end watch sites, and they are right there.
Oh, yeah.
And if you look at watches, high-end watches, some of those watches cost $15,000 to $20,000.
Yep, easily.
For a watch.
Yep.
Now, I would not pay that for a watch.
No.
But that's just me. I don't like dark roast Tim Hortons either. I won't even try it.
3 weeks in a row.
I will not try it. See what Burger King did to them? Now they have dark roast. Would you like original or dark roast? Shut up.
You shouldn't even be going into Burger King, dude. You said you lost 30 pounds. How'd you lose 30 pounds going into Burger King?
Give me my coffee.
Now, a little birdie told me, said, okay, let's assume that the Apple Gold watch is going to cost you $7,500. All right? That's a significant amount of money. The issue is Apple's going to have another version of the watch, Apple Watch 2.0, in about a year's time. We're going to assume that.
Right.
If you paid $7,500 for that watch, would that upset you that there'd be a new version a year later?
I don't see how you could be upset.
The little birdie said, what if you could change the insides of the watch? You could take it in or send it in to your local watch expert, and they would change the innards. You still have your gold watch on the outside, but the guts of it will be changeable, but only on the high-end watch. If you buy the sport version or the $400 version, you got to buy a whole new watch to get the new version.
Yeah.
But on the high-end watch, they'll swap out the insides for you.
That would be good.
I think that would make sense, too.
But who knows?
Or Apple's just assuming that folks who are willing to spend $7,000 on a watch 1 year are willing to spend $7,000 on a watch in another, say, year and a half, 2 years later, which is also possible, too.
The people that can afford to do that, maybe they will.
Yeah.
That's not me.
That's right. Yeah, not me either. Brian Monroe in the IRC chat room says, Shawn, Apple could offer Apple Care on the Apple Watch. It allows you to drop it off and pick it up 1 hour with new innards. Yeah, that's certainly possible too.
Good.
Absolutely possible. We don't know. We just don't know what's going to happen. There's all kinds of rumors going on about the Apple Watch. I think it's just going to be very interesting. I've said it before, how Apple markets this, the advertisements around the Apple Watch in general, and certainly the Gold Watch in particular, how they sell it. Will they sell it in the Apple stores? Will they sell it in the high-end jewelry stores. Yes, I think they're going to. That whole thing, this is a whole different, completely different market for Apple. And that's why they brought on the people they have. Angela Ahrens from Burberry, the guys from Louis Vuitton, the guys from Coach. Those guys know how to sell high-end merchandise. That's why Apple brought these guys on, was to advise them how to do this. I'm dying. I'm never going to buy an Apple Watch. I can never see a time when I personally would want an Apple Watch. But I'm dying to see how Apple sells the Apple Watch to the masses. It's going to be very, very interesting.
Me too.
Folks, that's it for Jim Dalrymple. And I've talked to him long enough today. It was an hour this morning, a half hour now. I was like, I'm just tired of the sound of his voice. Check it out. Go to 5by5.tv/amplified or do a search on the iTunes store and check out Jim's podcast, co-hosted by the Second Banana over here, myself. We had a good one this morning, so definitely check it out. Jim, thanks very much for joining me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Shawn.
Have a good night. See ya.
You too, bye.
Thanks very much to Jim for doing that for me. I appreciate it, as always. Email onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Let me know what you guys think about anything that Jim and I have spoken about here on the show, whether you're tuned in live or whether you're listening to the archive. I like getting emails from you guys all during the week. Marcus says, change it somewhere other than at an Apple store? That'd be surprising. Not necessarily, Marcus, if only because if you remember back in the early days of the Apple store, almost all products had to be, Macintosh product had to be shipped out. Nobody was allowed to work on, for example, laptops. I don't know if they're still called PowerBooks. Yeah, they were. If your PowerBook was broken, you had to ship it back to, or the Apple store shipped it back to Cupertino for you, or Austin, Texas, one of the two. They didn't do in-store repairs at the time in the Apple store. So it's entirely possible that the same thing would happen, at least initially, with the Apple Watch. Certainly, that's not unusual for particular high-end watches. My Tissot, my wonderful Tissot touch watch I've had for 12 years. I think I'm pretty sure it's the longest thing I've ever owned. I've had it for the longest period of time, is that Tissot watch. It broke one time, and the watch store, my local watch store, who was an authorized Tissot dealership, authorized Tissot reseller, that had a repair shop in the store. They repaired all kinds of watches. Wasn't allowed to repair the watch. It had to be sent back to Switzerland. Literally, the watch had to go back to Switzerland to get repaired. It took about a month, all told, to get the watch back. So I can see, at least initially, Apple doing that. If they were going to do this innard switch, that you would, for high-end customers. High-end customers, they wouldn't necessarily mind sending in their expensive device for a week. Remember, Apple used to get the MacBooks or the PowerBooks back to you in 3 days. You went into the store, they diagnosed it, they put it in a box, it went out that day, it got fixed the next day, and got shipped back to you by the third day. They were pretty fast at it, for the most part. Most repairs had a 3-day turnaround, and 2 of those days were travel days. So keep that in mind. Oh, my product got delivered. Oh, crap, where is it? Hopefully it's upstairs. So maybe that's what's going to happen, is that Apple is going to ship these things back to a store to get them fixed. Brian Monroe, Shawn, don't forget about that. Apple could do the swap out in store the same way they fix iPhone screens in store instead of giving you a replacement new iPhone. Possibly, but these are gold watches. They have to be handled in a particular kind of way. Remember, gold scratches incredibly easily. Full 24 karat gold is incredibly soft. That's why you see it so rarely in jewelry. You can, if you ever had a chance to hold or touch a bar of gold bullion or pure gold, you can push your fingernail into it because it's very, very soft. So I don't know if Apple wants the average everyday genius or the average everyday guy in their store handling any kind of volume of these watches. The last thing you want to do is damage this watch in transit, in the manipulation of the watch. So I don't think Apple would want to do that with the folks they have in store until they've been properly trained. So, just my thoughts. ArcSign says, does Tissot have new models of the watch you bought, Shawn? Yeah, they do. And by the way, you spelled it incorrectly. It's Tissot. I'm just going to go to the website right now and see if I can't see it. It's called the Tissot Touch Watch. Tissot T-Watch. Sorry, I'm take that back. And they have upgraded it since. I've seen it in different colors. I've seen it in black, and I think I've seen it in gold. Now there's a solar version of it. T-touch.com is the website that Tissot has. It's a great watch. I mean, one of the things I love about the watch is that it's so heavy. It's a solid, heavy watch. I like the weight of the watch on my wrist. You can see that they've got different watch faces. The one I have is a black face. The one on the screen right now has a silver band with a blue face. Mine has a silver band with a black face on it. They're beautiful watches, and they've got chronograph watches now. They've got a whole bunch of different styles of the watch. I really like it. Let's get to some of your emails. As always, email me to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com. Robert Studer says, evidently Russia cares about Tim Cook's sexual orientation with them dismantling a monument to Steve Jobs. What Steve Jobs has to do with Tim Cook is beyond me. Well, Jobs hired Cook, but that story, as is a lot of the stories on the Mac News web, is a little bit fake, a little bit false. Turns out the backstory of that is that device, it wasn't really a statue of Jobs or anything else like that. It was a device that electronically showed things. It broke. And it may have been just coincidental that it was being taken away to be fixed on the day that Tim Cook made his announcement. So don't believe everything you read, especially on the Mac web. Les Posen says, for the land of the free, the USA has a long way to go. In Australia, you would sue the employer for unfair dismissal, for which we have strict laws. Yeah, I think it's true in Canada too. That it would be illegal to fire someone because they said that they were gay. But sadly, it's not illegal in several states, in a significant number of states. I think a third of the states in the U.S. ArcSign says, I know, ArcSign, you're trying to make a point. Just make the point, brother. Come on. How mad did you get that you don't have the latest model? Not mad at all. Not mad at all. Because it's a watch. It does the same thing now that it did before. The Tissot watch doesn't do anything functionally significantly different than my previous version. It still has a chronograph, still has the alarm, still has the barometer, still has the functions that I want from before. It just looks a little bit differently. That's not necessarily going to be true of the Apple Watch moving forward. You know the Apple Watch version 2 is going to have different functionality. Maybe it becomes waterproof, or at least water resistant, so you can wear it in the shower. Maybe it has a lot more gyroscopes or other functionality coming up in version 2 and version 3 and version 4, whereas that's not true of the Tissot. Roddy Paws follows up from his question from last week's show. He says, I may not have been specific enough. The files I'm referring to are from my DSLR when I shoot video. I put my card into my laptop and copy the files to the RAID, and I edit the files from the RAID drive. But then I make a second copy to a backup drive as soon as the files are finished copying from the card to the RAID. That's good. I'd like to have the backup folders mirror the folders on the RAID, the way I have the folders organized in folders too. Except when I delete folders from my RAID to make space, I want to not have them deleted automatically from the backup. I don't think I can help you. If only because I've never used RAID drives like that. You know what, Roddy? This sounds like a perfect question for Chris Breen at Macworld 911. Send it off to him. I think Chris will have more, because he's also a musician who does audio files and moves audio files around like this too. He might be able to help you out more than I can, because you've stepped into deeper water that I'm comfortable with. And Brian Monroe is pointing out that's not how RAID works. That's the other thing I was thinking about as I was reading it too. As for Yosemite, Roddy says, I was going to wait, but I installed it anyway. I agree, iTunes 12 is really bad. I can't stand this new flat look, but when I do have a sidebar, you can have it in some places, it's back to the grayscale icons again. Apple had the option for color back in version 11. I'm trying to follow the steps to downgrade to iTunes 11 right now. I also find it frustrating that iPhoto launches when I insert a camera card. I can't seem to make this stop without one setting. I go in image capture and set the preferences to not launch an application, but then when I connect a different card, it launches iPhoto again. So I have to set this up for each card and phone I connect. Wow, what? I don't like the new icons, but even more, Safari is just ugly now. Why are the bookmarks in the bookmarks bar centered? Just because? My favorite part of Yosemite is probably when using Time Machine. Apple finally got rid of that stupid space background animation that was just wasting system resources for no good reason. I haven't tried making a call with my Mac, but I used to have that ability back when I had a flip phone before the first iPhone. Nice to see smartphones catching up to the Motorola Razr. Why does everything have to be thinner in the iOS and Mac OS X user interface? The Apple logo looks smaller for some reason too. Yeah, I've got no disagreement with you, Roddy. Your comments mirror mine. It's very frustrating to have it change this way. And again, for no readily apparent reason. If Apple could explain to me why the text in my search field in Safari keeps jumping back and forth, maybe I could understand it. But they don't. There's no reason for it to do that. There's no reason for the favicon icon to be hiding from me, to show up sometimes and not other times. There's no reason for it. There's no and folks, by the way, pointed out that my complaint last week of the buttons like the share button and the tab button and those things that used to be on the left-hand side in Safari that are now on the right-hand side, you can, I think it's command and put them back. I think that's what it is. You can move them around using the, hold on the command button and move those icons around. Thanks. I appreciate you guys telling me that. But that's not the point. The point is Apple moved them for no reason. And Apple should be the one telling me that, oh, by the way, hold down the command key if you want to put these things back. I shouldn't have to hear about this from listeners who may have found out because somebody accidentally did that. That's where the frustration comes for a lot of folks, myself included. Brian Monroe says, I do suspect that this Apple Watch will be a collector's item. Well, collector's items always depend on scarcity. It depends on how many of these Apple makes and sells. If they make 500 of them, if they sell 500 of them, then in 20 years, maybe it'll be a collector's item. If they sell 500,000 of them, probably not a collector's item. Just because something's new doesn't automatically make it a collectible item. It's got to be scarce also. Arcsign says, a customer who buys a $10,000, $20,000 watch wants to have the earlier original model and doesn't get mad that newer models are around. Okay, I can see that point. Mosquito, anyone who can afford the gold watch probably have assistants to run it for him or her. I don't think that's true, Mo. Come on. Arcsign, like classic cars, newer cars have better engines, transmissions, all kinds of improvements, but the classic model in great condition is the dream of most car lovers. That's sometimes true. It's not always true. And look at the new Ferrari, which is the worst name Ferrari ever. It's called Ferrari La Ferrari. So it's called Ferrari the Ferrari. It's a brand new car. It has the latest and greatest bells and whistles. There's only 499 going to be made. It's automatically a collector's item. It's automatically scarce and therefore a collector's item and will be worth millions of dollars. So it's not necessarily just because it's old that collectors want that particular item. Trying to make sure that I'm reading this stuff correctly. Terry Schurter. Terry Schurter. My apologies, Terry, for screwing your name up. Who apparently, I think we should make this official. Is now the official YML quilter. She's the quilter of YML. hexylady.com is her website. And she's got some beautiful quilts there. I actually sent some off, the link to her website to a couple of friends of mine who I know do quilting, and they were impressed by some of the pretty quilts that she had. She wrote, last week you asked who upgraded to Yosemite. Here's my story. I've still got Mavericks on a 2012 iMac. I've got Yosemite on a late 2008 aluminum body MacBook. Amazingly, I've got Mavericks on a brand new MacBook Pro. I ordered the new MacBook Pro online because I maxed it out in every possible way, and it took a week to build. I picked it up from the Apple Store yesterday, but it turned out they have Mavericks installed instead of Yosemite. My first impulse was to go home and install Yosemite, but then I remembered the discussion from your show from last week, and I wasn't sure it was a good idea to upgrade immediately. I felt as if I'd been given a choice in the matter, and it might make sense to leave Mavericks in place while I get my new machine configured the way I want. At the Apple Store, we signed in with my Apple ID, installed Java, downloaded my client for the Go server I play on, and made sure the client worked. I'm going to start fresh with this machine, adding one app at a time and moving over data slowly to eventually make it my primary machine. Since I purchased one-to-one, I intend to take full advantage of it. I'll be picking the Apple brains at my local store at every opportunity. Terry, I really want to hear about your experience with the one-to-one folks. Because for better or worse, one-to-one depends entirely on the quality of the people you are talking to. My one-to-one experience has been iffy. In Connecticut, it was pretty good. Here in Vancouver at the Guildford store, it was awful. And not because of the person. I was wanting more information on Aperture. The nice, very pleasant, nice young lady who was the Aperture trainer had no clue what she was talking about. I could argue that she had never used Aperture before. She didn't know what she was doing. She sort of poked around on the menu items and sort of tried to explain things to me. I had to show her how to do stuff in Aperture. It was very, very frustrating for me. You pay for the service and you expect a better quality of training than sitting with an employee and they poke around at the interface and go, oh yeah, look what this does. So Terry, I'd be very interested to hear what your experiences with the one-to-one training is. She says, I told my husband that, unlike the iPad, which now belongs to him, the old MacBook still belongs to me, but he may use it. Like you, however, I don't like change merely for the sake of change, and I suspect that I will have some difficulty finding my way around and making muscle memory adjustments. She says, by the way, I now have a new appreciation for multiple backup strategies. Even though I probably haven't lost a thing, and even if I had lost things, those things would not have been important. Anytime you think you're going to experience data loss, it's anxiety-provoking. My recent experiences have confirmed my belief I should always have two functional machines at my disposal, so I never have to buy at a bad time, and so I always have a machine to leave running the previous OS for as long as necessary when a new OS comes along. That's a great point, and it's a great luxury for you, Terry. Good for you that you can have those two machines. The downside comes in trying to keep things straight and trying to halfway use one and halfway use the other. And not all of us have that luxury. I mean, I certainly don't. I've got this one MacBook Pro sitting in front of me, and God forbid, knock on wood, blah, 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 this thing crashes on me. I'm screwed. Utterly screwed. I've got backups, but if the machine itself is down, I'm screwed. But I'm glad to see that you have a way of doing multiple uses of machines. Mosquito says, nice idea for two machines if you can implement it. Our friend Scott Reynolds from the Long Island Macintosh user group says, here's an easy way to purge the memory your systems may be holding on to. These are two applications that will do it. Cocktail, which is $20 and worth every penny I have. Worth every penny. I have used it for lots of things. And Onyx, which is free. You can do a search for Cocktail or Onyx, O-N-Y-X, on Google and find them. This app also has many uses. Attached are some screenshots of before and after using one of these utilities. As you can see in the screenshot, Cocktail offers one extra feature in the category. What you can do is use these apps to purge memory. And I'm using an app called Memory Dialogue, which does the same sort of thing. That's great. Purging memory is great. The thing is, it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen with Safari and Mail. Seriously, if all I've got open, this is my morning routine. My morning routine is I have Safari, Mail, and Yoru Fukuru, my Twitter client, open. That's how every morning my computer is when I sit down in front of it. I'll then, at some point in the day, open up Calendar. I'll open up QuickTime to watch a video maybe. I use an app called Beamer to send video to my Apple TV or what other things do I have open? Chrome, I'll sometimes open to get a different look at a website. But I will have Safari, Mail, and Yoru Fukuru open. And I'll still get out-of-memory dialogue issues. And when I open up the Memory app, it says, what's using the most amount of memory? Safari and Mail. And I've got 8 gigs of RAM in this machine. Safari and Mail should not be sucking up that much resources. Come on, Apple. You've had plenty of time to fix these leaks in these apps. These are known issues and have been known for years. These apps have always been memory hogs. Stop it. Stop it. You drive people away from your apps when they do these kinds of things. They drive people away from Mail. They drive them away from Safari. Because the apps don't act don't act well with others. And they suck up huge amounts of RAM. It's really, really frustrating. Brian Monroe says, Shawn, sounds like you should try and do a clean install. Why should I have to do a clean install? That makes no sense. Why do I have to do a clean install? The average user doesn't know about clean installs. If I've got 3 apps open, I shouldn't need to do a clean install simply because Safari and Mail are RAM hogs. It's got nothing to do with my clean install. It's got everything to do with those apps being memory pigs. Known memory leakage issues in Safari, in Mail, for at least the last 5 years. Nothing to do with clean install. As MacMan says, permissions won't fix memory leaks. Exactly. Got to make sure our friend Richard Madison, also from the Long Island Macintosh user group. As for the changes for change's sake or changing things because we can annoyance, I agree with you. It's entirely unnecessary. However, the changing preferences and settings could just be, and everyone starts from the standard settings with a major upgrade mindset. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, the programmers could probably write a couple lines of code that would prevent the total reset from happening, but they probably don't think like that, or they don't care. As Rick says, I discovered in Safari in Yosemite those little buttons for sharing bookmarking can be moved by holding the command key while moving them. So you hold the command key down, click on the little icon, you can slide them around. In addition, a right click on the toolbar brings up a customized toolbar contextual menu where you can add other buttons to the toolbar. Mail still has the use classical layout preference, which I like, so you don't have to have it look like iOS if you don't want it to. But when you install Yosemite, it opens in the new way. Another case of anti-leave it the way I like it programming. I haven't even looked at iTunes 12 yet. I'm just trying to get familiar with the few apps most of the Long Island Mac user group members will want to use right away, things like Finder, Safari, and Mail. I suppose, as you said, we'll get used to the changes, but for now, they are annoyances. I want Apple to make every version of the OS better than the previous version. I want it to run faster. I want it to do more. And Yosemite does more. I don't know if it runs faster. It certainly does more. But the idea of changing things for the sake of changing them just piss people off. Yes, I'll get used to it eventually. Eventually I'll remember that the email link is on the right-hand side, or eventually I'll move it back to the left-hand side. I may never get used to little teeny tiny freaking icons that look the exact same across the screen. I may never get used to the fact that my text jumps back and forth in Safari for no apparent frickin' reason. Those things I may never get used to because they're always going to piss me off. But for the most part, Yosemite I'll give it a B minus. It doesn't crash. That's the first and most important thing when it comes to Yosemite for me. It doesn't go south on me for no apparent reason. I get a few web pages that get locked up in Safari, but I can still use other web pages, so that's not that big a deal. That happened in Mavericks too. I have found no apps that don't work in Yosemite. Some folks have, but the apps I use don't have any of those issues. 99.9% of the time, I'm able to do exactly the things I did in Mavericks, the exact same way I do in Yosemite. So that's a good thing. There's a little bit of a slowdown as I get used to, again, where different things are. But for the most part, Yosemite is going to be the same as Mavericks from the point of view of usability and getting your work done, which is, good. That's great. It's great news. And we'll see more and more apps get updated, and we see that with iOS a lot. There's a lot of OS 8 apps that are being updated for the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus and things like that. And we'll see that in the Yosemite apps too. Want to also I got a couple of emails about this and a bunch of tweets. Roddy Paws. I had to add my 2 cents about Sly. Not that it would change anything, but ever since you moved to the U.S., anytime after, when you announced you were moving, I would hope it would be back to Vancouver. Every time it wasn't, I was bummed. So when you announced you were finally moving back to Canada a while back, I was excited to hear it, until you also announced it wasn't in Vancouver. So finally, you moved back to Vancouver. I thought, great, Sly can be back on the show in person again. The show was much better when Sly was a part of it. And I'm only referring to her being actually on the show in person or on the phone. I had a fun birthday this year, but this was the first year I didn't get my birthday shout out from Sly. I don't know what the reason is, but YML is only made better when there's at least a call-in segment. Think about how long it's been since a chair dance. Hopefully, I didn't get too carried away here, but I really miss both co-host Sly and call-in Sly, and have since her call-in segment stopped. To be fair, I miss Jay too. If you hadn't moved back to Canada, too bad you weren't able to go back to Nashville. See, Sly? People want you on the show. I want you on the show. And to be clear, it's Sly's choice to not be on the show. I've always wanted Sly on the show. She can't be here in person because I live way too far away from Sly for her to come out here or for me to drive to her place and then come back out here. And besides, Sly would not get on the motorcycle. Can you imagine? I don't think I could bungee cord Sly to the motorcycle. I think she would chew through the bungee cords and beat me to death with my own helmet if I ever tried to get Sly on a motorcycle. It's just not going to happen. I don't have a car. So I can't go get her. There's no way I would expect her to come all the way the hell out here. This is just, seriously, folks, I live a long way outside of Vancouver. I live out in the boonies. It's an hour and a half bus ride into downtown Vancouver. But Sly, I'm just saying, that's one of several emails and a dozen tweets. So if you want to come back and do your call-in segment, I'm more than happy to have you back on the show. I'm just want to put that out there for you. All right? I wanted to check just to make sure. I don't know if I read this on last week's show. Les Posen, again down there in Australia, regarding Macworld iWorld event news. Some will miss it, some won't. I did enjoy my travels to San Francisco and beyond, most Januaries, then March. I expect a few blog articles will float around about describing someone's best Macworld experience. Mine is the day before my 2-day workshop on Keynote 4, Apple releases, in its last appearance, Keynote 5. I met up with one of the lead engineers for the iWork team at Moscone South, who had reached out to me in years past to discuss what I've witnessed demoed from Phil Schiller in the Apple Keynote. He then hands me a USB drive with the General Master, GM. General Master? Good Master? Anyway, of Keynote 5 and says, go have a play. And so I spend the rest of the day getting into it so I could include a demo in my workshop. The audience appreciated it, if only for the reason to confirm they had chosen to come to a workshop given by someone who knew something about the software. And believe me, folks, that wasn't approved by Apple. That was a guy at Apple taking pity on poor Les and handing him the news version of Keynote so he wouldn't look like a fool in his presentation. Jason Painter says, It's surprising that Macworld Expo kept going after Apple pulled out. I have no doubt it's dead now. Apparently, Macworld IT is good, so hopefully that won't be affected. I attended in 2008 where I met you, a highlight. That was the last keynote delivered by Steve Jobs. I was in the room, right up in the back. A good experience I had hoped to repeat at some stage, but without Apple, I couldn't justify traveling halfway across the planet. You've made the point that Apple's customer base is so big now that there has to be some way to service them with an event. I'd be interested in hearing more about that. Well, if only because, as I've said before, there are 5 million people in the Bay Area. If you assume 10% of those people use some version of Apple products, even Macintosh, that's 500,000 people. You should be able to get 10% of those 500,000 people to come to your show. Is it just me, or does that seem like a no-brainer to everybody else? Now, granted, you got to spend money. You got to spend money in advertising and promotion and all that kind of stuff. For example, I never understood why, for those folks who aren't familiar with the backstory, IDG, the organization, owns both Macworld Expo and Macworld the magazine. Now, the two aren't supposed to communicate or deal with each other, but obviously, they're partners in all this stuff. So why didn't Macworld the magazine ever run a contest, an all-expense-paid trip to Macworld Expo by subscribing? If you subscribe to the magazine, we put your name into the hat to win an all-expense-paid trip to Macworld Expo. Why didn't anyone ever think about that? Or when IDG was charging for entry to Macworld Expo, I think they were charging anywhere between $15 and $35, depending on the year. Why didn't Macworld the magazine say, hey, if you're a subscriber, you get in for free? They never did that. Why wasn't Macworld the magazine sponsoring contests all through the show? Because they didn't think about their readership that way. Like I said, I've always said it's a top-down thing. No one thinks about these things. No one thought about how to serve the showgoers to increase foot traffic. They always had this rule that you couldn't bring strollers onto the show floor. And the reason was, it kind of made sense, was that they were afraid of the lawsuits that would happen if somebody tripped over a stroller and squashed a baby. Now, I've been to a lot of trade shows. I never once have seen anyone seriously trip over a rolly bag of any kind. And you see people at CESs and Photoshop Worlds and Photo Pluses, we're all dragging around those rolly bags. I've never seen anyone trip over one of those. I've never seen anyone trip over a baby stroller. Now, I'm sure people have tripped over baby strollers. I have no problem with that. But for the 1 in 10 million chance of that, you banned people from bringing children onto the show floor and therefore banning people from coming to the show? That seems silly to me. I said to Macworld Expo, I said, why not just have a baby daycare on the show floor? I guarantee you, the local Macintosh community, the local mugs, the mugs are full of grandmothers, full of grandfathers. If you had said, hey, we're going to donate money to your mug, we're going to set up this area over here, and we're going to get sponsorship for it. We're going to get some local baby company to give us baby toys. And we're going to have a bunch of iPads. And people just drop their kid off. Like, I've seen it in the mall. Our local mall has a baby drop-off area. They could have done that. How hard would that have been? I am not the smartest guy in the room, but I can come up with 10 different ideas as I sit here right now of how to encourage people to come to the shows. It's not that hard if you want to do it. And I think that is the issue. IDG was never part of the Macintosh community. in the way that we are, for example. They were never involved in the Mac. They paid lip service to it, but they were never really, for lack of a better term, Kool-Aid drinkers. They were a business running a business. The problem was the business that they were running wasn't a business, it was a community. So they should have been a business running a community, if I'm making any sense at all. Because they treated that differently, that was the problem. They treated it as a business and not as a way to serve a community. So, okay, let's move on. What else we got? Robert Stewart also points out that I could customize the toolbar in Safari, move the tool icons where I wanted them. Thank you, Robert. I wanted to make sure I gave you props for that. Thanks very much for the email. I think it's it. I heard from one of our... by the way, this is November, and it's the first month of November. Sorry, first Wednesday of November. I gotta say it. I know. It's that time of year again, folks. Christmas is coming. I know. I'm sorry. We've got 45 days. So a lot of you guys are going to be using Amazon.com to go shopping. Please, 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 please. Come to yourmaclifeshow.com first and click on one of our Amazon links on the left-hand side. Because when you do that, anything you buy at Amazon during that period of time, we get a bit of a kickback from. So I would very much appreciate it if you did that, because Christmas is our big season when it comes to getting those links. You can see them on the left-hand side. Amazon Picks of the Week. Pick any one of those things. Any one of the American Road, the Robin Williams live DVD, the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, anything I've got linked there. You don't have to buy that thing, but anything you purchase while you're surfing around Amazon, we get a small kickback for that. The other thing you can do too is if you scroll to the bottom of it, you can get, if you use Safari, Lex Friedman's affiliatizer for Safari. It's a really cool little extension for Safari. What it does is it allows you to just simply fire and forget. You use this extension in Safari, and it automatically puts the Your Mac Life code into Amazon every time you use Amazon, which is great. So that's a big help. This is a big deal for us this time of year. We get a lot of our Amazon bucks from Christmas time. So please, as you're doing your Christmas shopping, think of that. And so our Secret Santa, or one of our Secret Santas, heard me raving about Pixelmator for the iPad. He went out and bought it. He's raving about it. Now he wants more folks to be able to use it. So he's given us $25. Woohoo! But $25 gets us 5 copies of Pixelmator for the iPad. So this is going to go out to you folks who have subscribed to Your Mac Life. As always, you can subscribe to Your Mac Life by going to the website on the left-hand side. You can click on the button and subscribe for $5, $10, $15, $2, whatever amount of money you want each month. Or if you've done a Friends of YML contest entry form, you can put your name into the virtual hat that way too, without it costing you a dime. I prefer it. I'll like you better if you subscribe. I'm not lying about that. I'm being honest with you guys. People who subscribe are handsomer, are better looking, are funnier. I just like them better. So on next week's show, we're going to give away 5 copies of the fantastic, I love using it, the Pixelmator. Pixelmator for the iPad. You can find out more information at pixelmator.com. Just go to the website at pixelmator.com and you can see more. Don't buy it yet if you haven't bought it yet, because maybe you'll win one of 5 copies on next week's YML. And finally, an announcement. We've ended our affiliation, our association with Audible at audible.com. I want to say a big thanks to all the folks at audible.com for all these years. More than 10 years we've been on audible.com. Folks have slowly moved away from subscribing to Your Mac Life via Audible and moved over to either just not doing it at all or subscribing directly. So there's really not a lot of point in us doing the audible.com thing anymore. But at one point, Your Mac Life was only one of 2 podcasts that Audible.com was selling. The other was Ricky Gervais. That's how long I've been doing this. This was before podcasting. They weren't even called podcasts at the time. And we were one of the first of 2 ever on Audible.com. So me and Audible.com go way, way back. Still a fan of Audible.com books. Still a fan of the service they have. So I want to say thanks very much to the folks at Audible.com for supporting Your Mac Life for all these years. At one point, we had enough from Audible.com that it sent us, it upgraded our hotel in Paris for us. So Jay and I didn't have to sleep in the same hotel room. Then we could get separate rooms for those expos in Paris, which I really appreciated. Thank you very much, Audible. Because I did, at a certain point, you're a grown man. You don't share rooms with other grown men. So it was great to have separate rooms for Jay and I. So thanks very much to all the folks at Audible.com for all the support they've given us over these years. As always, I thank you guys for supporting the show, whether you're listening in live, whether you tune into the archive, whether you buy stuff on Amazon.com or subscribe to the show, whatever it is you got going on. Thank you guys very much for doing it. That's it. I want to say thanks very much to Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. And again, check out the other show that Jim and I do called Amplified, available at 5by5.tv/amplified, or just go on the iTunes store and do a search for Amplified. If you have a chance, leave a review. It's a new show now. It's really interesting to see folks comparing, contrasting the previous show with Dan Benjamin and the show that Jim and I are doing, and just a different vibe. I think part of it's just because I've known Jim for 20 years, and so I can say and do things with Jim that maybe Dan didn't feel comfortable doing with. Dan's show was still good, and the music sections of it were much better than anything I could ever do. But it's interesting to see folks sending me comments with that. So I thanks for that, and please put a review in the iTunes store for Amplified if you get a chance. Folks, as always, thank you guys very much for joining me. I've been Shawn King, and this has been Your Mac Life. See ya!